Ariel Helwani with us again. Check out his MMA show. And I was saying earlier in the week, Ariel, and thank you, that across sports in my lifetime, Jon Jones, boxer, anything, Jon Jones is the best fighter of my lifetime. And what has happened with him, I think, is just the behavior of an addict. Am I being reckless in saying that? Or once you get into so many troubled situations with alcohol and drugs, it's a leap that a lot of people end up making?
No, not at all, Dan. I hope you guys are doing well. Thank you for having me. Great update on the Van Gundy brothers. I was riveted by that. John himself says that he's an addict at this point, and he reminds me a lot. I think I may have said it on your show in the past. He reminds me a lot of Doc Gooden, Darryl Strawberry, Lawrence Taylor comes to mind as well. Just immensely talented athletes who just can't get out of their own way. The biggest difference between John and those guys are John is considered by many to be the greatest of all time. So could you imagine if someone like Michael Jordan, someone like Wayne Gretzky, someone like that was getting in his own way? Because I can sit here and tell you, yeah, you can make a very strong case based on his resume that he's the greatest of all time. But I also kind of feel like I have to also say, you know what? He probably could have been better. And he keeps inflicting himself with these wounds, and he keeps stunting his growth, and he's still in his early 30s. What truly scares me, Dan, is what happens when he's 40. What happens when no one's asking him to fight? No one's asking him to come to a convention to sign autographs. No one wants to talk to him anymore. What happens then? Because if he's doing this now when he's in his prime, I worry about what he's going to do then.
What you're saying, though, Ariel, that I think bears repeating and actually exploring is the idea that the greatest fighter that you and I or many people have ever seen, actually you don't make him the greatest because you hold the drug use against him, right? You say that the other guys haven't been hit with PEDs, so you put him in your top 3 or top 5. But the idea that this guy doesn't train properly for these fights, that admits afterward, Ariel, when he looks a little sluggish and someone ends up taking him 5 rounds and he hasn't looked great in his latest fights, that it's because he wasn't taking things as seriously as he needed to because the party was always calling him.
Yep, that's exactly it. I spoke to him a week before his last fight against Dominic Reyes. I thought he lost that fight, by the way, 3 rounds to 2. But I was asking him, hey, how are things going as far as your sobriety is concerned? And he's like, I still drink and drink on the weekend. And I was really surprised that people didn't make a big deal out of this. They made a big deal out of Conor McGregor saying that he was drinking leading up to the Khabib Nurmagomedov fight. But Conor isn't necessarily known to be an addict. He hasn't gotten in as much trouble as John as far as the sport is concerned. He certainly has had his fair share of troubles as well. But no one picked up on this. And to me, if you're a high-level athlete, if you're one of the best in your sport, and you're drinking leading up to big-time events, big-time fights, and think about what it entails to go 25 minutes against, some of the best athletes in the world. What the heck is going on here? Like, why is this happening? This should not be happening. It's one thing to drink before the training camp, but in the midst of the training camp, literally days before the fight, to me, that's a massive warning flag. And, I truly hope, there's something has to happen. Like we just found out what his plea deal was yesterday, and, he's not going to spend any jail time or anything like that. But to me, if he just stays with the status quo, if he stays in Albuquerque, if he stays with his team, if everything just stays the same, as Daniel Cormier has said time and again, and that's his biggest rival, it will continue to happen. I fear the same because nothing is changing. He's never doing anything to change his behavior, and it concerns me. It's interesting. I saw the Rex Chapman E60, and it reminded me a lot of John. He went to rehab twice. Nothing happened. Then he went back home to Kentucky, and finally something clicked. And I wonder if maybe for John, if he goes back home to upstate New York, something could click.
I'm wondering as I watch what's happening with Jon Jones, because it seems to get a little bit crazier. What are the most egregious training violations you've heard him admit to or that have been reported in terms of him coming into a fight basically naked? Like, not Tyson used to do this, Ariel. Tyson used to drink and party, and then a week before the fight would start his training and would win the fights.
Yeah. For me, the most egregious, Dan, is UFC 165 against Alexander Gustafsson, which just so happens, in my opinion, to be the best fight in UFC history, considering the stakes and who was fighting. No one thought Gustafsson, this tall Swedish fighter, had any kind of a shot against Jon Jones. And up until that point, Jon had really not seemed vulnerable at all in any of his fights, never been taken down in the fight. And all of a sudden, in the first minute or so, Gustafsson takes him down and really takes him to the brink. 2 years later, 2 years after that fight, John won the fight by the skin of his teeth. He told me that the week leading up to that fight in Toronto, so the fight happened at the Air Canada Centre in Toronto, now known as the Scotiabank Arena. That week, he would drive an hour outside of Toronto where he was staying, and he would go party and do God knows what. And then he would go back to his hotel and, continue on with the fight week prep. And he told me that when he walked out to that fight, he said to himself, I can't believe I'm about to lose my belt. I can't believe I did this to myself. I can't believe I didn't take this fight seriously. Now, perhaps given his God-given ability, and for those that don't know, John's brother is Chandler Jones, star of the Arizona Cardinals, another brother of his, Arthur Jones, Super Bowl champion with the Ravens. I mean, he comes from a very athletically gifted family, but maybe that got him through that fight. But he told me that the week leading up to that fight, he was partying, and he felt like he was about to lose as a result of that.
That is why, though, Ariel, that I think he's the best I've ever seen. It's precisely the reason. I'm not holding the drug use against him. I'm amazed that the only thing that closed the gap between him and legitimate contenders was when he didn't take it seriously, that he was so much better than everyone else. You're talking about Daniel Cormier. That guy's a decorated champion. That guy is great at fighting. He's got no chance against Jon Jones, and he kind of knows it. Like, what happens around Jon Jones is that his best is so much better than anything I've ever seen, that only drug use makes the fights close.
No, great point, and you can make a case that he's the greatest. Certainly his resume would suggest that. The reason I don't say he's number one on my list, and at the end of the day, what do these lists mean? I mean, to me, it's barbershop talk, and it's fun to debate with friends. What does my opinion mean as opposed to someone else's? But the reason I don't put him number one is because of the PD infractions, not because of the run-ins with the law, not because of the arrests or anything like that, not because of the partying, but when you fail 2 drug tests for performance-enhancing drugs, that, to me, simply puts a cloud over your career.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.